Hello everyone, this is Joshua Smith with Apollo's Artifacts. It is September the 8th, 2017. So I'm going to be talking about a few different subjects today. This is a little bit different than what I've been doing before. I'm going to go over some articles about YouTube, about censorship that's taking place right now, some of the alternatives to YouTube, and then a little bit about IQ. Also, there might be a little bit more background noise than usual. I have quite a few peeps hanging out at my house today. Everybody's running around doing a lot of different things, banging on stuff and whatnot. It just happens, it's life. But I think I've always been fascinated with IQ sort of as a concept because of the impact that it's had on my own life. I was one of those kids that when I went through school, it was just too easy. I mean, everything was so easy that I ended up being really bored with it. But also, I avoided the advanced placement and gifted programs because I didn't like the way that those kids were basically discriminated against. I knew that, the way that, at least my group of friends looked at those people, was that, they're dorks, they're nerds, they're the outsiders, they're bizarre, they're strange, and I didn't want to be thought of that way, so I did everything I could to sort of, keep my head a little bit low there. I had it offered to me several different times to try to get me to go into the gifted programs and whatnot, but I always rejected those. Had invitations to magnet schools and stuff like that, and just never wanted to participate in that sort of stuff. But, yeah, there's a really good conversation here that Dr. Jordan Peterson had the other day on the Neuroscience of Intelligence with a Dr. Richard Herr. And Richard Herr is a neuroscientist, and he's recently written a book. It's kind of hard to believe that he recently retired as a professor and had not published a book until recently. I guess he just had peer-reviewed articles before that or something and spent all of his time doing research and teaching or something, but that's a little bit unusual. Usually professors are churning out, 2 or 3 books before their university career is over. Anyway, what I want to go back to right now is about YouTube, censorship, all the collaboration with the way that Google, implodes certain searches, their search functions to hide things that they don't want people to find and whatnot. And one of the ways they've been doing this on YouTube lately is putting people into a restricted state where it's difficult to find them. And if you do find them, then you have to be logged in under an account with a certain age limit put in so that you can get past all of the restrictions and be able to watch the video or listen or whatever else. I actually usually just listen. I don't watch many of the videos. I keep headphones on and just listen to people. So I hope that's how people do these because I don't have any video recording equipment as of yet. But anyway, the most recent one was, I think Dave Rubin and Steven Crowder had a lot of their backlog of videos demonetized. And I don't think I'm ever even going to bother with monetization. I just don't think it's going to work anyway. All of these topics are just inherently too controversial for YouTube right now because they're obsessed with this corporate model and kowtowing to whatever the SJWs want them to do. But for now, let me review some articles that cover some of this. This is for commentary and criticism purposes that I read from these. The first one is from something called Red Media Club. I have no idea what that is. They say support our mission on Patreon, but I actually don't know what their mission is, so support it at at your caution, I suppose. Okay, so this article is called Redacted. It came out March 1st, 2017. Dave Rubin demonetized for discussing Islam. Now we know that it has actually grown far beyond just, demonetizing him for discussing Islam, which I guess that somehow is magically inappropriate now to even talk about that. But it talks about It says, Dave Rubin from Rubin Report lost the ability to monetize a series of videos where he interviewed Flemming Rose, who is best known for the Danish cartoon controversy in which a series of cartoons, some depicting the Prophet Muhammad as a terrorist with a bomb, were published by the newspaper Jyllands-Posten. Let's see, Rubin said there was nothing in those videos close to anything that wouldn't be okay on network television or for an advertiser to lay a commercial over. And that is totally true. I mean, Dave is just, he's straight down the middle. He's completely anodyne. I don't see how anyone could be offended by really anything that he does. I've personally never been offended by it, and my friends either who watch him also. And let's see, what else does it say in this article? It talks about some other YouTubers who are also being demonetized. The Ireland-based conservative YouTuber Computing Forever. I've watched some of his videos, listened to him. He's really interesting from time to time. Also don't really know why he would be demonetized. I don't know why commercials couldn't run across something like that. It's a little bit baffling. Their test case scenario, of course, was PewDiePie, which they mention here. Seeing PewDiePie as controversial is, really, really bizarre. He just, he jokes around all the time. He makes all these video game commentary videos where he plays games and all this kind of stuff. My nephew and I found him way back when he first started, I think maybe 6 or 7 years ago. And I really haven't watched him too much the last few years, but I don't know how they could justify going after someone like him. But anyway, there's an article on Breitbart called YouTube Continues Demonetization Censorship Affecting Liberal Dave Rubin and Fast Food Guru Review Bra. I have no idea who that is. Don't want to really. Anyway, this is dated September 7, 2017, written by Charlie Nash. YouTube has continued to demonetize videos from popular content creators, now affecting interviewer Dave Rubin and fast food reviewer The Report of the Week. And that's primarily what Rubin does. He doesn't do a whole lot of personal commentary about bringing out, what he believes on all these different subjects. He just interviews people, sometimes people who are indeed controversial themselves, but just letting them get their ideas out. It's confusing how that could be so controversial, including Michael Shermer, who's basically the king of the capital S Skeptic Society. And I don't like, personally, some of his argumentative tactics that he uses, the way he'll lump together ghosts and UFOs and 9/11 and JFK and act like, anybody who believes in any one of these topics probably believes in all of the topics. Like I've heard a debate with him a few years ago with one of these 9/11 truth people, and Shermer started bringing in stuff about chupacabras and Bigfoot and all this other stuff, and the guy was just, completely baffled because I think he was a philosophy professor or something, and he said, I'm talking about 9/11 here. I don't know the first thing about, ghosts and UFOs and all this other business that you're trying to, lump in for attack purposes. But anyway, I've seen that, videos with Michael Shermer have been demonetized, which is just baffling to say the least. So I'm reading, some of the people who have been demonetized. Says he claimed nearly his entire catalog of videos have been affected, including interviews with the Muslim Ayaan Hirsi Ali, who's an absolute hero, Professor Jordan Peterson, of course, former Minnesota Governor Jesse Ventura. You can see Jesse saying some controversial stuff, but come on, the guy's been on national television for, 30, 40 years? Feminist activist and scholar Christina Hoff Sommers, television host Larry King. That's kind of a strange one. That reminds me, for some reason, of this interview that Larry King had with Jerry Seinfeld after Seinfeld's show had gone off. And he's talking to Jerry, and he says something about how Seinfeld was canceled, And Seinfeld totally freaked out on him. He raised his voice. He was like, canceled? Canceled, Larry. We were #1 in the world. We weren't canceled. Who knows where Larry King's mind was then? Probably on one of his many ex-wives. And let's see, conservative commentator Steven Crowder. Article goes on. Several other popular YouTube creators have also been demonetized recently, including fast food reviewer Report of the Week, who had both a Burger King review and a video update on Hurricane Irma demonetized by the platform. What in the hell? During an interview between Dave Rubin and fellow YouTube creator Philip DeFranco, who I think has several millions of followers, who has also been affected by YouTube demonetization, the two discussed the current problems with censorship on the platform. There's a lot of people very frustrated with YouTube, just from creators to people watching. People are feeling this whole demonetization thing, which you've done a bunch of videos on. There's a feeling that there's some censorship being involved, happening right now, declared Rubin. We now have videos for this month that's just gone. We have videos in our back end that were not tagged, not titled. They had no metadata attached to them, and they were demonetized. Wow, how can that happen? I've seen this happen to Gad Sad lately, too. I mean, he's had videos that are almost, preposterously demonetized before he could even post them anywhere. I mean, they were merely uploaded to the site, and like some individual, I guess, is going through, demonetizing videos before they can even come out to begin with. Like some kind of an auto flagging process, or they got some team of people just watching a specific people. It says here they've also done this to Diamond and Silk, who are just absolutely hilarious if you've never seen their videos. PragerU. It goes on and on and on. So one of the things we may want to look at right now are some alternatives to YouTube. One of them is called BitChute. I've seen Sticks and Hexenhammer 666 talk about this a little bit lately, because he's one of the people who was allowed to get on there and upload all of his material, which is fantastic. And it's not open to the general public yet, but eventually they plan for it to be, but right now it's some of the bigger, more successful YouTubers who are on there. I think I've seen Paul Joseph Watson's material on there, and Sticks also. But some of the other alternatives, you just have the general milieu that you can, get all these things to work together: Twitter, Instagram, Vimeo, Snapchat, Facebook. But the real problem is, if you want to spend most of your time on YouTube like I do, then they're making it very difficult to do so at the moment. So now I want to move on from that and talk a little bit about the IQ issue. So this is an interview. It's about an hour and a half long. Dr. Peterson talked to a Dr. Richard Hare, who prior to this I had actually never heard of, never seen before. But it's called the Neuroscience of Intelligence, which is a topic that really offends people. I don't understand why it does. I think that what happens is a lot of people confuse the G factor or high IQ with some sort of moral valuing. But obviously everybody has seen people with high IQs who are completely and utterly baselessly evil people, right? And we've all known lots, of low IQ people who are perfectly fine and wonderful, nice, generous, kind, caring, giving people. So IQ has no relationship whatsoever with ethics or morality. But anyway, here's some of the material it says here. There's almost nothing more important to understand about people than intelligence. It could be measured more accurately than anything else in the social sciences. It differs tremendously and importantly between individuals. It is the single most important determinant of life's success. Its very existence, however, remains subject to substantive debate, most of it highly politicized. Dr. Richard Hare has recently written a major book on the topic called The Neuroscience of Intelligence. I'm actually about to buy that. Maybe I'll do a review of it sometime. Summarized in the following manner, quote, "This book introduces new and provocative neuroscience research that advances our understanding of intelligence and the brain. Compelling evidence shows that genetics plays a more important role than environment as intelligence develops from childhood, and that intelligence test scores correspond strongly to specific features of the brain assessed with neuroimaging. In understandable language, Richard J. Hare explains cutting-edge techniques based on genetics, DNA, and imaging of brain connectivity and function. He dispels common misconceptions, such as the belief that IQ tests are biased or meaningless, and debunks simple interventions alleged to increase intelligence." So I definitely recommend that you listen to that interview if you want to know a little bit more about IQ, the G factor, and the neuroscience of intelligence overall. This, however, gives us a good jumping off point for the next topic, because it comes up in that conversation where Dr. Hare and Dr. Peterson actually talk about the bell curve, written by Herrnestein and Murray. So I go over here to this article, also on Breitbart. When was this published? Yesterday, the 7th, by Tom Chichoda, I guess how you pronounce that name. Harvard editorial. Charles Murray lecture, quote, "threatens the lives of students." As if they couldn't get more hysterical and hyperbolic, I suppose. A group of students at Harvard University penned an op-ed for the Harvard Crimson pulpit on Wednesday, arguing that a lecture by Charles Murray on campus, quote, threatens the lives of, quote, marginalized students. Marginalized, sure, here at Harvard. 3 students from the Harvard Black Caucus penned an op-ed for the Crimson on Wednesday ahead of a lecture by Charles Murray that took place on campus Wednesday evening. Murray, a Harvard alumnus, tweeted on Tuesday that he would not be able to walk across Harvard Yard without a police escort due to the rising tensions on campus over his appearance. Rising tensions, my goodness, these people. The students argued that Murray's invitation, they misspelled Murray, equated to dehumanizing marginalized people. See, there's the moralizing and ethics that they try to bring into IQ, which actually there's no relationship there, and Murray never claims that there is either. Murray's, invitation equated to dehumanizing marginalized people and suggested that Murray is part of an ideological tradition that made the tragedy of Charlottesville possible. Charlottesville? Really? Charles Murray? Oh my goodness, he's like, the friendly neighborhood old man who walks his dog or something like that. I mean, he's completely anodyne, non-offensive, unbelievable. Anyway, they quote part of the article here. For the Open Campus Initiative to invite Murray to campus and give him an unchecked platform. What does an unchecked platform mean? Do you think that he needs to be cracked over the head, punched in the face? I guess that's how you check the platform or something, like check yourself, Murray. Unchecked platform from which he can participate in and legitimize a tradition of dehumanization of marginalized people. Oh my goodness, the same tradition that is responsible for the tragedy of Charlottesville and America's entire history of racial trauma is fundamentally at odds with who we should be as a college. We believe that this event is misguided and urge Open Campus Initiative to cancel it. The students baselessly accuse Murray of embracing white nationalism. He's never done any such thing, citing a designation by the Southern Poverty Law Center far left-wing ideologues, a group that has come under fire for labeling Islamic reformists such as Majid Nawaz and Ayaan Hirsi Ali as, quote, anti-Muslim extremists. Let's see, former Muslims, anti-Muslim extremists. Okay, makes no sense. Murray's ideology is white nationalism, they declare without evidence or proof, and has always been white nationalism, again without evidence, facts, proof, data, anything to support it. He has never rejected the claims he makes in the bell curve. Why should he? He was correct. Open Campus Initiative invited a white nationalist to campus, and they cannot control what he choose. What? They cannot control what he choose to bring up in his talk? I suppose they can't control what he choose to bring up in his talk, whatever that means. To assume that race, gender, and class will not ground everything that is discussed during this event is to forget who Charles Murray is. Oh, so says people who are totally and utterly obsessed with race, gender, and class. His entire ideology is tainted by white nationalism. I guess they think if they repeat it enough, it somehow makes it true. Back to the article, the students suggest that Murray's lecture, quote, fundamentally threatens their lives and freedoms due to the beliefs he holds. No, his beliefs have absolutely nothing to do with threatening your lives. How can we begin to foster a sense of belonging and inclusion for these groups on this campus while inviting people who call into question their intelligence, worth, and humanity, they add. And again, there they go, lumping in together intelligence with worth and humanity, which Murray never does. And I guess probably one of the more shocking things about this would be that presumably the people who penned this op-ed are of high intelligence themselves, high G-factor people. However, having a high IQ doesn't mean that they are ideologically correct, and that's a big problem, and there's a big difference there. 2 books that I would suggest you may want to read to see how some of this stuff has come about would be Charlotte Iserbyt, I think was her name. She wrote a book called The Deliberate Dumbing Down of America. And that one was really good. That had a big impact on me in helping me to understand how some of this stuff came about internally from the Department of Education. Now, there's another and different approach to this by, I think, a 2-time New York Teacher of the Year. I think he won the State of New York Teacher of the Year once, and then the New York City Teacher of the Year another time. A man named John Taylor Gatto, Gatto, and he wrote a book called Dumbing Us Down. But the subtitle of it was The Hidden Curriculum of Compulsory Schooling, and he traces it back to the Prussian model of schooling, which was basically to churn out soldiers, good soldiers, and basically factory workers. And if you read those two books, you'll get a good sense of how we came to be in the position that we are now. It doesn't cover all of it, but it does give you at least some hints and suggestions. There's a lot more beyond that, a lot to do with the infiltration of actual communists and socialists into all of the public education system and higher ed naturally. And John Taylor Gatto has several interviews that you should be able to find on YouTube. I watched many of them years ago. I haven't seen any of them in quite a while, but I would recommend that you check those out. The main thing that we should take away from all this, though, is that if you're on YouTube, go ahead and stay on YouTube, but also find backup plans, find some alternatives, other places to go so you can get your material out. If you're thinking about joining it, please go ahead. We need all the new voices that we can possibly get, because the more that we stand up against this, stand up against this sort of quiet, slow-moving repression, or whatever you want to call it, the better that things will be for us overall. But I guess that's all I have for today. Thanks.